computer. Okay. The goal of Hasidus and what it's all about, we can see from the details of when the Alter Rebbe was set free. He was released in the 3rd month from Tishrei on the 3rd day, Tuesday, when in the creation story, twice the word good Hashem did say. So the Alter Rebbe emphasized that he was freed from prison specifically on a Tuesday, and it was in Kislev, which is the 3rd month from Tishrei. And Tuesday, we know that when Hashem created the world, he said, Ki Taiv, that it's good 2 times. And all these things are very relevant, to explain to us what the significance of Yotes Kislev really is. When the news of his release he was given, he was in the middle of saying the 55th parak of Tehillim. He was saying the words, my soul has been redeemed peacefully. The key theme of Hasidus is peace and harmony, which is represented by the number 3. So he was saying, Pada b'shalem nafshi, Hashem redeemed my soul peacefully. These are the words that he was saying when he was released, and all these things all are all keys to explain to us what was accomplished on Yotes Kislev. So what are our clues? Number 1, it's Tuesday, which is the 3rd day of the week. Number 2, it's the 3rd month. Number 3, Hashem said the word good 2 times. And number 4, he says, Pada b'shalem nafshi, this concept of peace, that he was redeemed peacefully. These are the words that he was saying when he was actually redeemed. And he was saying chapter 55, Kapitel Nun Hey, because the Tehillim is divided not only into the portions for the days of the week, and portions of the days of the month, but also portions for the day of the week. So he was saying the 3rd portion in the Tehillim, and that's why he was saying Pada b'shalom nafshi when he was redeemed. Okay. Okay, so where else does the number 3 stand out? And I know that the number 3 stands out in many, many places, but we're going to focus on another time where we see the number 3 in a very, very clear way. And that is with Matan Torah, with the giving of the Torah. Okay. Between Matan Torah and the number 3, there is also a clear connection. In the month of Sivan, which is the 3rd month from Nisan, after 3 days of preparation, Hashem chose to give the Torah to the Yidden by breaking the barrier between earth and heaven. So we're saying that Kislev is the 3rd month from Tishrei, but the 3rd month from Nisan, which is another way of counting, is the month of Sivan, the 3rd month. And after 3 days of preparation, Hashem gave us the Torah. And what actually happened with Matan Torah, we've learned this many times. What happened was that before the giving of the Torah, there was a separation between earth and heaven. Holiness could not be permeated. This world could not contain holiness. There was no physical object could hold holiness. And once Matan Torah happened, this barrier between heaven and earth was broken, was taken away. And then from that point on, something physical could be elevated to the spiritual, and something spiritual could come down to the physical, and actually could have holy objects, holy physical objects that happen as a result of Matan Torah. So we see a parallel. We see Yotes Kislev, we see the number 3, we see the concept of peace and harmony, and then we also have this number 3 and this concept of peace and harmony, which we're going to see in the next paragraph when we're speaking about Matan Torah.
Can I just add one? It's very big in the Chabad. Always Gimel.
They're very good. Okay, excellent. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about the number 3 in a second. Okay, Matan Torah merged the higher realms and the lower realms finally, which is represented by the number 3. Because the number 1 shows that there is one entity only. 2 shows separation. and 3 shows merging 2 things to form a new entity. To have just oneness, it's not a big deal. Nothing was accomplished. One is one, that's it. There's only me and no one else exists and finished. Number 2 is when you have heaven and earth, you have 2 things that conflict with each other. Number 3, this ability to override 2 things that are conflicting and to merge them into one and to create a new entity, that's already an incredible chiddush. You can have red paint, you can have blue paint. Red stands on its own. Red and blue could be two different, completely different colors. Then take the red and the blue, mix them together, merge them. Now it becomes purple. Now you have a completely new entity, something brand new that didn't exist before. You have it's a big chiddush, a big innovation. Something incredible, something new was created when you have this concept of 3, of merging 2 opposite things and creating a new oneness. That's the concept number 3. The entire Torah was given to make peace in the world, the Rambam does say. In fact, the Torah is called peace, since peace involves connecting 2 entities that are far away. Okay, so just to sit with that for a minute. The incredible gift of Torah. What does the Torah do? The Torah takes heaven and earth, spiritual and physical, which are 2 opposite things, which are worlds apart, and yet through Torah we have the peace, the connection between the physical and the spiritual, to make peace between the 2 worlds, which is an incredible feat, and it's an incredible feat, and it's an incredible gift. And it's just amazing. Like, when we were doing our fundraising campaign, so someone reached out to me and she sent me a picture of another Chabad house, like a very big Chabad house that has a lot of events for Hanukkah. And she wanted to know, she was saying that she hopes our Chabad house could grow and be like that one day. Amen. But it's incredible. I was just looking at the flyer. Ice skating and all kinds of things that, ice skating and menorah lighting, it could be 2 different worlds, but yet you could have ice menorah on ice skating rink, that you could literally bring two worlds together. And it's incredible. It's incredible. You could take something that's so high and bring it all the way down here to something so fun. And food, absolutely. And to merge the 2 worlds, not that Torah is Torah and fun is fun, and it's 2 different worlds, but rather know that we could that we do merge the 2 together. It's not that each one is mutually exclusive, but rather and sometimes it's hard to blend the 2 of them to make sure that it's in a kosher way, whatever, sometimes it could be a challenge, but this concept of really taking some things that are so spiritual and taking things that are so physical, the concept of merging them together and making that peace. It's not like either you have fun, either you have a good time, or you sit in yeshiva and learn. It's not choose one or the other, but rather this concept of that you can make peace, that you could find something for everyone, that everyone could feel connected to it, that you could draw everyone in. It's not only for these kind of people or those kind of people, but something that could really bring peace between everyone. That's an incredible gift that Torah gives us. So basically, this is what Matan Torah did. It took heaven and earth and it brought them together. By Matan Torah, we have this concept of number 3, the 3rd month, 3rd day of preparation, and Torah brings peace. And now we see that Yutes Kislev, it's not just Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus. Okay, it's a new year for Hasidus. That's when we start the new cycle. But rather, whatever happened by Matan Torah, believe it or not, and for me, it's a brand new concept, that whatever happened by Matan Torah, Yutes Kislev is the Matan Torah of Hasidus. Not just the Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus, it's the Matan Torah of Hasidus. And whatever was accomplished Matan Torah was accomplished for Hasidus on Yutes Kislev. The Matan Torah of Hasidus happened on Yutes Kislev, a day of peace and liberation from heaven to the most remote places came the Torah's most secret dimension. Okay, and we said this last time. When we say Torah tziva lanu Moshe merasha kilas Yaakov, that the Torah is an inheritance for every Jew, it doesn't just mean one part of Torah is an inheritance for every Jew. Every single part of Torah, the pshat, the remez, the drush, the side, the secrets of Torah belongs to everyone. And what happened was until Yutes Kislev, the spreading of Hasidus was very limited. There was obstacles, there were barriers. The well springs of Hasidus could only go so far. And the Baal Shem Tov went up to the heavenly realms and he met Mashiach and he asked him, he said, when will Mashiach come? And Mashiach said, when the well springs of Hasidus will be spread where? Chutza, to the outside. That's when Mashiach's going to come. And outside could mean in two ways. Hasidus has to penetrate and permeate. Number one, in a very simple way, that it should be able to permeate and penetrate to the furthest location, to the furthest corner of the world. The wellsprings of Hasidus should reach even the furthest corners of the world. And then within our own selves, that Hasidus shouldn't just be something that's intellect in the mind or, in the core of my soul, but rather the Hasidus should go chutza, outside of me. The Hasidus that I learned shouldn't just stay in the core of my soul, but rather it should come out to my outermost self, which is my thought, speech, and action, up until action. That it shouldn't just stay in my heart, but rather it should come chutza, should come as external as possible, all the way to action. That when the Hasidus that I learn, I could live it in my everyday life. That's what it means, chutza. Chutza for me and chutza for places in the world. That's what that's when Mashiach will come. So up until Yutes Kislev, the spreading of Hasidus was limited. There were opponents. It wasn't spread it wasn't spread to the furthest corner of the earth. But what happened in Yutes Kislev is just like what happened in Matan Torah. And that is that heaven and earth were able to merge, and any blockage or any opponent was gotten rid of, for sure, in a spiritual way, which, that's the step number one. So after just like after Matan Torah, heaven and earth could merge, and you could have physical objects that actually contain holiness in it. The same thing is after Yutes Kislev, the wellsprings of Hasidus could be spread with no apologies and with no limitations, and to every single person. And this is what we're celebrating on Yutes Kislev. It's not just for Hasidei Chabad, and it's not just for the people that are sitting around this table, but Hasidus is for every single Jew. No matter who they are, from the greatest of the great to the lowest of the low, there's no one's excluded. And this is what Yutes Kislev is celebrating. That to take away any red tape, take away any yellow tape, any caution tape. There's no caution. You could spread it full force to every individual, to the furthest corner of the world, without being embarrassed, without, just to really have that freedom, that there's no place that Hasidus is not welcomed and invited in. Okay, so we're saying that there's this unity between heaven and earth. The unity was good for both heaven and every creation, because Hasidus gives us the power to elevate our avodah to heaven, so that with Hashem, our connection can grow. But it also demands a love for every Jew, even if he is just a creation in a state so low. So the fact that it says that when was this liberation? It was on Tuesday, a day that Hashem said, Ki Tov, twice. This liberation, this unity, this peace is good both for heaven and for earth. So when we learn Hasidus, it's good for both. Why? Because number one, our avodah, through doing our work, we could actually rise to the highest heights. We could feel that closeness to Hashem. We can grow, become so spiritual. But at the same time, Chassidus demands from us that yes, you could reach heaven, you could go be in cloud 9 or whichever cloud you want to be in, but at the same time, Chassidus isn't just good for heaven; it's also good for earth. For a Jew who his only the only good thing about him is that you could call him a creation of Hashem. Chassidus demands that we should have ahavas Yisroel, love for our fellow Jew, even as low as they are. We have to have to love them with all our heart, and all our soul. So Chassidus, that you see this concept that on one hand, Chassidus raises us so high. On the other hand, it empowers us to go as low as we need to love and bring and hold and embrace another Jew. So there's no barriers, there's no limits. You could go to the highest of the high and you could go the lowest of the low. Whatever you need to do, Chassidus demands both at the same time. And this is why you need a Matan Torah to bridge that to bridge that gap, that there is no gap between heaven and earth. It's not a stira, it's not a contradiction. You could be on the highest of the high, on the highest of the highest heights, and at the same time, you could worry about and care about and love a Jew who his redeeming factor is that he's a creation of Hashem. Okay, in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe does clarify that to all Jews, Chassidus does apply. You constantly need to go out of your comfort zone, even after reaching so high. And even if you feel so low, to serve Hashem is very close to you too, in your mouth and in your heart. To do it, it is attainable for every Jew. The same thing, this concept of heaven and earth, the same thing. Chassidus applies to every single Jew. Even if you're the greatest Torah scholar or the person who's the lowest of the low, it's equally attainable for everyone. And a person could be so high, learned his whole life and think, I don't really need Chassidus. I'm above it. I already know everything. I'm the smartest Talmid Chacham in the world. But Chassidus tells us in the 15th chapter, Tanya tells us in the 15th chapter of Tanya, it explains that there's something called being a servant of Hashem or not being a servant. A servant is someone who is constantly serving, who you can never stop serving. As soon as you reach a place and you say, I'm done, then you're not serving anymore. You're not serving anymore. Serving means that you're constantly improving yourself and constantly striving higher and higher. That we can never be satisfied with our status quo. If a person says, I reached a plateau. I'm good where I am. I'm happy with my growth. I'm fine over here. Then at that point, he could be a tzaddik. He could be very, very great, but he's not serving. Serving is something that you constantly have to do. So even if you reach the greatest heights, Chassidus still demands from you. They should keep. Okay, go explain.
I think we all have the same goal, but we have different strategies to get to that goal. And if we just focus on that we have the same goal versus the strategy that each step has to get to that goal.
Okay.
That's more honest.
Okay.
But if we're focusing on, but really Chassidus is for everyone, then it feels like the opposite of honest.
Okay.
Because then we're saying our strategy is the only way.
So that's so we have to learn a little bit more to explain that. And that's why, I could have said, what, I'm not teaching this. But the accomplishment of Yutes Kislev is the Chassidus truly is for everyone. And yes, we all have our derech to get there. But we can have two things that are true at the same time. Wow.
And every time you do it, I'm like, okay, really, when am I giving out Shabbos candles, whatever. All of a sudden, I was in Talbot's, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. And Rachel called me, so I said, I'm in Talbot's to visit Leslie. I didn't remember her name. I just came to visit this person. But they used to live around here, when we stopped for people who lived around here. So she said her name is Leslie, but then she said, leave us something. I go, oh,
Wow.
out of my mouth. She says, sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. Her son is Orthodox, lives in Long Branch. Her other kids are not from. She raised them conservative, whatever. So I said, you know what, they were having a sale again. I was there on Tuesday, they were having it on Thursday. They didn't want to give me the sale price. I said, I'm gonna come back with the candles. Then I realized I don't have your candles. Okay, but I have my own tea lights. But that must have the bracha on it. So now what happens? So then I went to Google, printed out the bracha.
Wow.
Then
There you go.
had little matches. I gave her 6 for nothing. What good is 2? I was like, okay, so 2, just whatever. That's what Kara told me about. I gave her 6 anyway.
Amazing. Now she can do it 3 times. It'll be a chazaka. Number 3.
But listen, so, okay. So on Thursday, whenever I get there, she says to me, she goes, a whole day, I thought it was Friday. And I'm thinking, I'm not coming. That really made me really want to go.
Wow.
She goes, I guess Heidi's not coming. Then towards the thing, a little after I realized, because at 4 o'clock she thought Heidi's not coming because it's going to be Shabbos. And she says, oh, wait a second, it's Thursday. And she said she's coming Thursday or Friday. And then I must have walked in like 5 o'clock on Thursday. So I realized, I am true to my word, like with kids, whatever, like if I say I'm doing something, I'm doing something. But look at this adult who really should go buy 2 tea lights. Just said, Chani's not coming, and then fine, so we took care of the candles and then whatever, we chatted a little bit. And then when I was walking out, I saw, I'm thinking, I'm a huggy person. So when I hug her, and I didn't know, because you don't know how people, and then as I'm like halfway, she goes, quick hug. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
I'm hugging, but I didn't know you were hugging.
Wow.
So the only thing I didn't have was like a list of what the times were, and the truth is she works on Friday. So she's probably not gonna like. So I said, you know what, when you get home late or whatever, I didn't even know what I'm supposed to say because I didn't call Shabbos, whatever. But, I can keep, and then she gave me her email, so I can give her email, what the times are, hope
Yeah.
you're well, like we got a little personal. But it was like, when she said, I don't think Connie's coming on. Oh, okay, this has to have its finishing up the situation, and then as I left, I go, are you gonna remember to take it? She goes, yeah, I wrote my name on my bag.
Oh, it's so special. You definitely touched her soul. You definitely touched her soul. What we tell people is if they can't light at the right time, they shouldn't light at all. Yeah, but the Fridays will get longer, and then maybe she'll be able to do it then.
Her son's from, so when she goes there for Shabbos, I guess, whatever, she went to the loft, started that conversation, if I know the loft, whatever. So she went out for her birthday, the loft, and then we ended up kind of connecting kosher-wise. She said she did a challah bake in Freehold.
Very nice, very nice.
Whatever, she said she knows your husband, but I don't know her last name, so I can't tell you.
Well, you're definitely a shlucha. You're definitely doing amazing work. Absolutely. So I hear your question. But at the same time, if a house is burning, it's an emergency situation. You have to just go in and save the people,
I'm saying okay to sit with this question. I'm saying I've been here for 4.5 years.
So I agree, I understand what you're saying. So this teaching is coming to debunk that myth that that it's for some people and not for others.
If I was Shaman, by the way,
If you were what?
husband, like this is the only way, you'd be like, what are you talking about?
We're not saying that this is the only way. We're saying that this is there's 4 different dimensions of learning Torah. The Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Said. there's 4 different ways. We're going to learn about that in Tanya this week, God willing. So these are the secrets, the most secrets, most deepest dimension of learning Torah, but it belongs to everyone. It doesn't just belong to select few or to one sect. And it doesn't mean, and it's supposed to be, we're not saying, okay, just learn the secrets and don't learn anything else. But this is something that could be incorporated. This has to be incorporated in our Avodah, whatever path you choose. Yes, the menorah has a bunch of different branches, and there are 12 different tribes, and there's different ways of serving Hashem. But the time has come that Hasidus is a tremendous asset to every Jew, no matter where they are, from the highest of the high to the lowest of the low. And this is what Yutes Kislev accomplished, to break that myth, to break that barrier, which says Hasidus is only for a select few. Is that there shouldn't be, this is for you, but it's not for me. It's not something that I could relate to. But when we're talking about, the deepest part of our neshama, the most secret, the greatest treasures and secrets of Hashem, we want it. If a person gets an inheritance from a family member, maybe that they never even knew about, and the inheritance is treasure boxes full of diamonds, jewelry, who knows what. So you know what? I don't want it. I didn't know that it existed. I'm fine without it. No, if you find out, if you didn't know about it, you didn't know about it. But the second you find out about it, that you inherited these tremendous wealth, to push it away and say, I lived without it until now, I don't need it.
I think it's that some people are in the emergency, so we seek it out, and some people are able to get by, even if they need it.
In a good way. Some people are
They're not like burning for.
They don't know that they're burning.
Right.
No, but you have to also, I think she struggles a little bit on the Lutvaks, the Hasidim, the Lubavitchers.
That's also like.
And that's what I'm saying, so they're different.
You want to repeat the question?
Yeah. Different questions, but she struggles with it, and we have to realize there's Haryat mitzvahs, and different people do mitzvahs differently. Different people have an appreciation for certain mitzvahs, a soft spot for certain mitzvahs, and even like you're thinking of the big Lutvisha Rabbanim who sit and learn a lot. But there's an amazing amount of Ahavas Yisrael, amazing amount of people coming and going. Different things that you could take examples from all kinds of people, like the Klosmer Rebbe, when after the war, he gave these girls brachos. He wrapped towels around his hands so he shouldn't touch them, but he gave them brachos, So now some people are yucky about it. They don't even take the money from your hand directly. So we have to just look at like the picture. Everyone's taking something else, and over time we learn something. I never thought candles is my thing. I tried it one day with the lady in the shoemaker. Please, what am I doing? You want to go express, you gave out candles. So you find different times that you're able to do certain things. You're able to invite strangers to your house. You're invited.
Hasidus takes you to the next level of closeness to Hashem. I think it's everybody needs it. You can people that like just take the word and say, don't tell, like if you don't tell people what they're teaching, we just teach them. I don't know.
It has to be, but it has to be in a way that people could accept it 100%. And yes.
Close to the Rebbe, everybody, different times they gave different interpretations, and now the Rebbe has a different interpretation on this particular paragraph. So it's really.
I've shared this example before. My mother was going on with Tzayim. She was giving out Shabbos candles with my niece, and a woman came over to her and said, my mother offered. Thank you so much for coming. A woman my mother approached a woman and asked her if she wants Shabbos candles, and she said, "Don't you think you're being She was in by the Brooklyn Museum in Crown Heights. She said to her mother, "Don't you think you're being too pushy?" Asked my mother. So my mother said to her, "Imagine you're walking down the street and your diamond ring fell off your finger, and I found it. Would you want me to be, just to be very quiet about it? Would you want me to run after you and say, 'Excuse me, miss, you lost your diamond ring?'" When you realize when you realize that when you see the value of something, and there's someone else that doesn't know that they lost it, but it belongs to them. It belongs to them. They don't realize that they lost it. They don't realize that it fell off their finger. So our job is, because you see, well, Hasidus, we're going to learn this in the next teaching, how Hasidus demands that we should love every single Jew. So if I care about another Jew, and this is your inheritance, and I'm so excited about this incredible thing that I learned, that you're my brother, you're my sister. Just like it enriches my life, I want to enrich your life too. I don't want to just keep it to myself. It's yours. It's yours just like it's mine. How can I keep it to myself? It's my duty, it's my honor, it's my privilege to share it with you. We're learning something new. When we come to this class, we open up our minds to learn something that we didn't learn before, to take something in that's novel, that's new, that's different than how we understood things before. And the new thing is, of course, it has to be ba'ifna maskabel. It has to be in a way that you can't, it has to be in a way that people can accept it. And if it means to teach the Hasidus without saying that it's Hasidus, or without saying that this is a teaching of the Rebbe, but just say, this is something really incredible that, really impacted me and I want to share with you, for sure. You don't have to say where it's coming from. Absolutely. But the point is that the time has come. The time has come from Yotes Kislev, which was the year 1798. 1798 was the liberation of the Alter Rebbe from jail. And from that time, we have the power to tap into this energy, especially when Yotes Kislev comes around, to be able to say, there are no more barriers. There is no more opposition. Spiritually, all the opposition was removed in 1798. And we have the power, if we just tap into it, to be people that we would think, oh, they wouldn't be receptive, whatever it is. But spiritually, all the obstacles were taken away, and we could, we have an obligation to spread Chassidus to every single person, to chutza, and that is how we're going to get Mashiach to come. It's not a joke; it's for real. Yeah.
I understand the source. I'm saying it's our job to show the world our and we are reaching to us. We are here to show the world, and especially our own people. So it's not just a fear, like we are living. So we also, our job is to spread is to get everybody in and bring over to as big a Hasid to the gods are very outside people within every, as a Jew, we are responsible to every Jew.
Therefore, do it, how to really do it.
We have to really go and do it. So I think it's like a special Hasid thing.
They are really going out there and doing it.
Okay, so
so many keywords foundations that you were like, I'm not saying, no, this office is low, but there's also here. There's so many. I remember years ago now, it's just like 25 years ago. I started to go stay in the summer. How did this fire? And then they told us that we should go to our neighbors and get the house. And we were out to Emma, and we were like, what? It's so weird. I'm like, yeah. If I'm telling you, they gave the whole speech out, you don't realize that just giving a comment that the neighbor is going to want. And I remember I went knocking on the door, and I'm like, it's such a strange experience, then I was younger, it was hard. Now, like I said, you're old, you don't care. I knocked the door, and this lady in the country, and she's so thankful, and you don't realize, and the bottom line is that they would tell us that we had to be part that they look at us by us not approaching, they think we're in their area. We think that they don't want, and they look at us like we are private. And a lot of them will say that we thought we didn't want, but really all them wants. We have to be the one that be open.
the neshama is open, and now we see it more than ever. That people are open to it, especially after October 7th. Everyone is really, really open to it, and our job is to give everyone what's rightfully theirs.
My struggle is very interesting. I have a 20-year-old son that's like more Hasidish, and he's like, yeah, someone once got a bracha from a gadol that says you could be makar yidden till you bring them into your house. You could be makar them. And me and my husband would bring people into the house, but he's like, you're not allowed to make a kiddush or a bracha if a married woman is not covered her ear. That's like beferish halacha. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I respect him because like last year he wasn't home for the year, he was in Israel. The year before he would come home only for Shabbos, and I felt like, Shaya, I'm gonna respect you. Of course, I want you home rather than the neighbor that doesn't cover me. But like, I'm happy we had this conversation, but like, that's why I'm struggling. Like, it's my child, not my spouse, you know, but like, I wanna also respect him, and he's home this year, so but I do wanna have like, and then I met these two single girls that like, I don't know how I met them, and they're Balshubas and we just like, sort of like, we crossed paths by mistake, and like, I would invite them, I said, Shaya, like, single girls that are not married, can I invite them? Oh, yeah, as long as they're siesta, okay.
Why
They're
can't
happy,
you-
very
why
from-
can't
They
you
were
say-
Balshubas, I'm very from, like, that wouldn't be my challenge, but.
Why can't you just say Kiddush and not look at their hair?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
There you go.
It's 20-year-old. I guess you're very.
So that's something that's a little bit but it's kind of a place of the Torah source, I think they can't argue it.
Or argue it, because you don't like them another time, he'll just like, if the other person says it, if the Rebbe says something else, maybe I won't bother with it, like.
No, I think I want to respect it because he's gonna be one, this is.
Okay, let's.
Okay, I'm gonna make it even more difficult. Okay, I'm gonna pick it up a notch. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's start moving. The Avos.
We'll take another one.
The Avos learned Torah before it was given, with their intellect and comprehension, but only after Matan Torah did Torah enter the world of action, where the script of Hashem was physically written. So before Matan Torah, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they learned Torah, and they even wrote things down. But whatever they wrote down was not a holy book. Torah was not able to be brought into the realm of action until Matan Torah. Now, the difference between the oral Torah and the written Torah, halachically, okay, want to talk halacha? We'll talk halacha, okay, is that every word of the written Torah must be written and pronounced perfectly. The written words are holy. Just by reading them, you perform the mitzvah of Torah study. So anything that was taught or learned before Matan Torah was all wonderful and great, but it didn't have the element of being written down, and therefore only something that was able to be understood, if you could understand it and you could comprehend it, then that was considered learning Torah. But this concept of being able to read words of Torah and the words themselves should be holy, that only happened once the Torah was given. So today, it's very interesting. I was just thinking about it. Chitas, Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya, which we're supposed to, which the Rabbeim encouraged that we should say a portion of Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya every single day. It's very interesting. That's what was chosen. Chumash, just by reading the words of Chumash, whether you understand it or not, you are saying holy words, and it's considered limud Torah. And Tehillim, we know, even if you don't understand what it means, when you say the words of Tehillim, they are holy and they could, break open the heavens. And we're going to see now that the same thing is with Tanya. Tanya, okay, so I'll read it from here. The Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich taught Hasidus to inspire the Yidden. But the Alter Rebbe spent 20 years writing the Tanya with extreme precision. To the written Torah, Tanya does compare. It starts with comprehension, but the goal is that our understanding should affect our emotions and physical action. Okay, so if you want to compare the written Torah and the oral Torah, the written Torah if you just read it, you automatically it's considered Torah study. And the oral Torah is not the same. If you read Gemara and you have no idea what you're saying, you didn't accomplish anything. That relationship between the written Torah and the oral Torah we find with Hasidus. Tanya is considered relative to the other Hasidus. That means that before the Alter Rebbe came around, there was the Baal Shem Tov and there was the Maggid of Mezrich. They also said plenty of Hasidus. True, they personally didn't write it down, but their students did write it down. But all Hasidus is in the category of oral teachings, which means that you only get the credit if you actually understand it. But there's one part of Hasidus that has the same holiness, and in comparison, just like you have Teresh B'chsav, Teresh B'al Peh, in comparison to all the other teachings of Hasidus, there's one part of Hasidus that is considered to be the written part of Hasidus, and that is Tanya. And just by reading the words of Tanya, even if you have no idea what you're saying, the book of Tanya is holy, the words of Tanya are holy, and the Alter Rebbe spent 20 years writing it. And I could find it here, the story, if I could find it. Here's the story.
I'm doing like it. So many times you don't understand it, but you should say it anyway.
Because there's incredible holiness just to the words of the Tanya. This is a footnote from this teaching. In the tradition of the family of the house of the Rebbe, it is recounted that once Rabbi Yehuda Leib, the Maharil of Yanovich, found his brother, the Alter Rebbe, sitting at his writing desk in deep contemplation. About an hour passed, and the Alter Rebbe became aware of his brother standing beside him. He said to him, "For 3 weeks now, I have been contemplating how to write this word." And he pointed to the written page of the Tanya lying before him, whether to include the conjunctive vav, as in the word V'ikara Visharsha, at the beginning of chapter 41, where he could have written the essence of the service, its root, but instead wrote and its root. He then explained, saying, on a single vav in the book of the Beinoni, Tanya, one is permitted to spend 6 weeks of contemplation, and in the 7th week there will be true illumination with an essential light. On every conjunctive vav in the book of the Beinoni, I have deliberated over the entire book. So the Tanya is the written Torah of Hasidus. And that's why I titled the class, why every single person needs to learn Tanya, because it's not just an accessory. This is true words of holiness that even if you don't understand it, you're literally yaitze the mitzvah of limud Torah just by reading the words of Tanya. Which I think is incredible, me personally, and Bela as well, for a few years now, I'm part of a group of like 200 women, and there's many such groups that every woman has a part of the Tanya, and I'm talking about all 5 parts of Tanya. The first part is 53 chapters, but there's 5 parts. Every woman has a part of Tanya and a partner. And every single day by 5:15, you're supposed to say your part, and if you said it first, you WhatsApp your partner to tell that you did it, and she should post on behalf of both of you, or the other way around. And every single day, the entire Tanya is completed by about 200 women in many, many such groups. And now we see the value of it. Just having those words being said brings incredible light, incredible light to the world. So
I think it's today's Tanya that teaches that when you do a mitzvah, what happens in the upper worlds and the incredible bracha that it brings in, and the opposite is true, that we're holding back. Yeah.
So how is it scheduled, 365 days?
So it's scheduled for a leap year and for not a leap year.
Say the same thing every day, same portion.
Oh, you're talking about Tanya in general?
How's it?
In general, there's a portion for every single day of the year, and there's a calendar for a leap year and calendar for a regular year. Yes. And the cycle begins Yutes Kislev. Oh, so this particular chat, everyone said, you say your part, the same part every single day. Yeah.
Yes, it's like you're done for today.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
You were the person who does that.
Okay, for 53 days, the Alter Rebbe sat in prison, corresponding to the 53 chapters of Tanya that he had written. And actually, he had written the Tanya. Tanya was published in 1796, which is 2 years before the imprisonment. And it says in the merit of the Chayis that the Tanya brought to the Hasidim for those 2 years, that in that merit, the Alter Rebbe was actually freed from jail. But although the Tanya was written 2 years before the liberation, still, until the Yutes Kislev, there was still that barrier. It was still the Hasidics couldn't be spread everywhere. But that all changed on Yutes Kislev. On Yutes Kislev, we get the power to fulfill our mission of bringing the wellsprings of Hasidus down to every Jew in every location. Learning and spreading Hasidus is the preparation for the coming of Mashiach, our final redemption. When with Mashiach, Torah we will study to reveal every mystery. May it happen immediately. So our, you know what? We could all be in different, different groups, different types, these labels that we, really don't, which are really we shouldn't have. But in any case, every single Jew, we all have the same goal. We all want Mashiach. We all want Mashiach, and how are we going to get there? Yes, Torah mitzvah is 100%, but there's Mashiach is not just a prize. You were so good, and now here's your prize. But rather, it's a result. It's an automatic. One feeds into the other. When we prepare ourselves we have to be prepared for the Torah of Mashiach, which is the secrets of the Torah, the most hidden dimension of the Torah. So this is a preparation, and it opens the gates. It opens the gates, and it ushers in the time of Mashiach through learning these teachings. So maybe it wasn't as important hundreds of years ago, but the closer we get to the imminent arrival of Mashiach, the more it becomes relevant, and the more it becomes important, and the more we want. And if we truly all have the same desire, no matter who we are, no matter where we are, which is to get to the finish line, to get to Mashiach. And it was said to the Baal Shem Tov, when will Mashiach come? When the wellsprings of Chassidus will be spread forth to every corner of the world. So yes, it might not be something we were brought up with. Yes, it might be something new. Yes, it might be something difficult to something that we have to open up our minds to, and to be able to open ourselves up to something new, to embrace something new, and to realize that these are the greatest treasures. These are the greatest treasures. And if you were mining somewhere and you found gold, silver, and treasures, and you had, you want to call your family members, your friends, come see what I've discovered. When you're fiery and excited about it, and it really touches your core, then it's automatic that you want to share it with the next person. Okay, so with that, in the remaining time that we have, we're gonna speak about another teaching, which is so incredible, because in school they tell you, there are some topics that we can't discuss, or we'll discuss a different time, or those topics. So so we're going to discuss one of those topics today, and the topic is do we truly have free choice? The question of free choice versus is everything predestined versus free choice. And the answer ultimately is going to be is that they are both true, and they're both true perspectives. Which reminds me, whatever. So I'll just share this to explain this concept of that you can have two perspectives. So this past Friday, I wanted to finish the children's video, and I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I went downstairs to finish the video. I go downstairs and I look out my window and I see a red light. And I thought maybe my husband left the car running. It looked like a light of a car. And I come close and I look out the window, and all of a sudden I see a man standing outside the shul door taking a picture. I run upstairs to my husband. I woke him up and I said, call the police. The shul is, yeah, so the door of that leads to the shul.
Yeah.
And I said, we do have cameras, but we don't know how to work them. So I wake up my husband. He comes running downstairs, and the red light is gone. No one's there. I'm like, am I hallucinating? Like, what? I was like, do you believe me that I actually? Yeah, I'm telling you, and he's like, no, I believe you. We do have cameras. We'll look in the morning. I'll call whoever the guy installed to find out how to, and he turned on the light. He turned on the light, like we have these bigger lights, these floodlights, to see if there's anyone outside. And we're like, whatever, going crazy. And then all of a sudden my husband says, did you order anything on Amazon? So anyway, it was someone delivering something from Amazon, and he was taking a picture of it. And that's why by the time I came upstairs, the light was gone because he had just taken a picture and whatever. So anyway, that's just a lesson. It was just a lesson. Hey, don't order anything for you to arrive up between 4 and 8 in the morning. But anyway, I made that order, and I forgot that I had done it. But the point is that you can have two perspectives. One perspective, a guy is coming to drop an Amazon package. Why you needed it so early in the morning is beyond him. And he's doing his job, he's doing his work, and he's completely legitimate. From my perspective, I'm ready to call the police. Who's taking a picture of the show? Like, which terrorist is this? So there could be multiple perspectives at the same time that are both true, and we see this in this week's parsha. Okay, so what happens? Okay, we're talking about the sale of Vayeishev. Vayeishev is sold by his brothers. The Talmud Yerushalmi says that because he was sold for 20 silver pieces, the Yidden have two types of payment. Number one, he was the firstborn of Rachel, and therefore we have a mitzvah that we have to redeem the firstborn son. For how much? For 5 shkalim. 5 shkalim is the equivalent of 20 pieces of silver. That's number one. Number two, till today. Today, we do it more Purim time. But in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, every single person had to give a half a shekel. Was communal funds, which was used for communal sacrifices. Now, a half a shekel. Okay, let's just see if our math, if our brains are working, right? So we said 20 pieces of silver is 5 shkalim, which you need to redeem your son, right? Now, there were 10 brothers that sold Vayeishev, right? So there are 10 brothers, and you want to divide. So whatever the 20 silver pieces that they got was divided into 10 for 10 different people. So how much does every person get? Half a shekel. Because good question. Good question. Good question. Excellent. Okay, we're going to discuss it because you're right. Really, in a revealed way, there were only 9. We're going to discuss it because Binyamin wasn't there, and Reuven wasn't there, and Vayeishev was the one that was being sold. Okay, but we do find that the money was divided into 10 equal pieces, 2 pieces of silver per person, and 2 pieces of silver is the equivalent of a half a shekel. Because if 20 pieces of silver is 5 shekel, then 2 pieces of silver is a half a shekel. Do we got that? Yeah? It shouldn't be that hard. Okay. So anyway, there are 2, these are the 2 types of payment that we have to give. because as a result of the selling of Yosef. Okay, so question is, what is the link? What is the connection between these two mitzvahs? Machatzis hashekel is very simple. It's an atonement for the neshama that makes sense. Okay, Machatzis hashekel. It says about Machatzis hashekel that when you give a half a shekel, it is an atonement for your soul. And it makes sense that they needed an atonement because since they sold their brother, the result was that caused that there should be a decree that the Yidden would be in Galus throughout history. That was as a result of them being, that was a result of the selling of Yosef. So till today, we need an atonement and we need to give a half a shekel.
That means that we all had a part in that.
Yosef was the firstborn from his mother.
But who got the other, who got the other half? If they collected that.
Okay, so we're going to discuss it. Okay. Now, the second mitzvah is Pidin Ben, redeeming a firstborn son. How is that connected? Machatzis shekel I can understand because it says about Machatzis shekel that if you give the half a coin, then it's an atonement for your soul, and we need atonement. But what is Pidin Ben, redeeming a firstborn? What does that have to do with anything? So the simple explanation is that because they sold the firstborn, because they sold Rachel's firstborn son, this later on was caused that all the firstborn Jewish people in Egypt would be in danger. At that night, when Hashem killed all the firstborn of Egyptians, the Jewish firstborn were also in danger, but Hashem protected them. So because the firstborn were in danger, the Jewish firstborn were also in danger. Therefore, and Hashem redeemed them, Hashem saved them. So therefore, we have to redeem our firstborn son. So both of these mitzvahs, yes. But both of these mitzvahs, both linked to Yosef, both linked to the fact that he was sold. Okay, that's just very much on the surface.
Why don't I get to make your opinion on this?
He doesn't need redemption. Yes.
But why? Kind of get to this. Okay, so somebody has to do it.
Okay.
My husband is doing that on Hanukkah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's only the second time.
Wow.
Yes.
Don't even second time we did it?
Yes. And it's very hard because in my family, there's never any Pidin Ben, so we almost never
But
listen.
your extended family could have.
It's
Not
not,
your siblings.
it's hard, yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So there's a lot of questions. I'm going to skip a bunch of questions, but basically, we're boiling down and we're asking ourselves: the sale of Yosef was seemingly a very bad thing. So Machatzis shekel, we will have to have atonement. That's great, but what is the connection? How could we say Pidin Ben? If you're redeeming the son, that means that this boy is holy. That's why he needs redemption. So how could it be this mitzvah of Pidin Ben should come, this great mitzvah of redeeming this child, this holy child? How could that come from something so terrible as selling Yosef? How could a positive thing come from something that's so negative? Okay, and then another question which you asked is that the math doesn't add up because there were only 9 participants of the sale. As we said, Binyamin wasn't there, Reuven wasn't there, and Yosef was the one that was being sold. So there are 2 different opinions, 2 suggested answers of who was the 10th. And it's 2 different answers, and they're both not good answers. And there's a reason why they're not good answers. So just hang on there. The first suggestion is that the 10th one is Reuven. Although he was not there by the actual sale, when he came back and he heard about it, he did not protest. And when it came to dipping the coat in the blood, he did not protest. And yes, he divided the money equally, and he did still get a portion of the money. And therefore, yes, Reuven wasn't there by the sale, but he got a portion of the money, and therefore, we do have to give a machatisa shekel, which is 1/10 of what, which is 1/10 of the sale price. That's what we each have to give as atonement. The second option is Vayeishev, that Vayeishev himself, although he himself was the one that was sold, he's included in the 10. Why? Because his behavior led them, was the catalyst for the entire event. He is the central part of the story, and therefore Vayeishev himself is considered to be one of the 10.
It also says, I think in today's Rashi says that this was him going to his brothers was fulfilling what Hashem told Adam Avinu, that we're going to go into Galus.
Excellent question. Excellent thing. Yeah, so the question we're going to ask about that is if
It didn't
yeah.
have to happen like that.
Yes, excellent question. The question is
That's exactly what the question.
yes.
That appeal power to be about.
Okay, so that's the question. That's the question. Do we have free choice, or is it predestined? Yes, the Yid didn't have to come down to Egypt, and yes, you have to be a Galus Mitzrayim. But the question is, couldn't Yosef get down there in a different way? Did it have to be through the sale, through being sold by the brothers? That's the question that we have. And
my son always has this complaint. Says, I say you have to forgive somebody who hurt you. They're just a shliach of Hashem. He says, well, they chose to be that shliach.
okay, so we're going to get there.
So he has a hard time, saying it's okay. They were just.
So we're gonna get to it. That's part of this teaching. Okay.
He was the only one who was able to explain to me.
Okay, so basically, our question is, why do we have to schlep either Reuven or Yosef to get 10? Why should we schlep them into the story? To answer this, we have to identify the difference between these two mitzvahs. Between the mitzvah of Machatzis Shekel, which is an atonement, which is an atonement for the actions of the Shvatim, versus the Pidin Haben, which is taking the value of Yosef as a whole. These two mitzvahs, we need two different mitzvahs because there are two different aspects of the sale. One aspect of the sale is the Shvatim. They benefited from the sale. They did something wrong. They harmed themselves spiritually. And therefore, till today, we have to contribute the amount that they each benefited. Each of them received a half a shekel, two silver pieces. Until today, they benefited, and we have to pay for it. They did something wrong, and that is the mitzvah of the Machatzah Shekel. But then there's another aspect of the sale, and that is the aspect of Yosef. He became a slave, and because of that, we need to redeem our sons. And the question is, which was we asked before, how could something negative, which is the sale of Yosef, lead to something good, which is redeeming sons, which is something so positive and holy? And the answer is, and this also is going to answer the question of why did the brothers have to actually sell Yosef? Why couldn't something else happen so that the Yosef should just end up in Mitzrayim? And the answer is, the Zohar explains this. Yes, there are many ways to get Yosef to come down to Mitzrayim, but it had to be through the sale of the brothers specifically. Hashem said, in the Bris Bein HaBesarim, Hashem said that the Yidden are going to go down to Mitzrayim, they're going to be exiled, and then there's going to be a redemption. And what happened was, this is a major twist in the story. A major, major twist. Again, open your mind to something brand new that you never heard before. And that is as follows. In a spiritual sense, the brothers who were keeping Torah mitzvahs, who were in Eretz Yisrael, had to own Yosef. They had to be the boss, and Yosef had to be the slave. And then this would the Yosef had to be the property of the brothers. And this would ensure that when Yosef would go down to Egypt, the Egyptians could never have complete control over him because Yosef is not owned by the Egyptians. Yosef is owned by his brothers. Even though they sold him, in a spiritual sense, once something goes into the hands of Kedusha, into holiness, it could never be taken away. So once Yosef was a slave to the brothers, and the brothers who were in Eretz Yisrael and were keeping Torah mitzvahs, who were holy, holiness owned Yosef. So even after he sold him to Egypt, no matter what happens, other slaves were never released from Egyptian slavery. But only the Jewish people had the ability to be redeemed. And that is because there was never a time that the Jews were completely owned or ruled by the Egyptians. Because no matter what, Yosef was never ruled by the Egyptians. Yosef was owned first by Jewish people who were in the land of Eretz Yisrael. And
his brother?
He was considered, because if they were able to take him and sell him, then he was their slave.
Are you saying initially they were
Spiritually.
they gave it up, but spiritually
Right.
they owned it.
Spiritually, they owned him first, and also the whole thing of being in Egypt, it was all like temporary. As only when he was in Egypt, he was subjected to Potiphar. He was a slave to Potiphar, but that was all within the limitations of Egypt. But really, he was owned by that was all temporary. He was really, truly, who did he really belong to? He truly belonged to his brothers first and foremost, and in the land of Israel, which was something much more permanent, and Egypt was something much more temporary. It was the
To the rainbow after the pain comes, you see the clarity of it. The Yidden, through the elder generation, we needed to have this happen in order for us to be redeemed.
okay.
I'm going that way.
Okay, so the
Brothers didn't have to sell it. There's both, like Honey was saying, there's all the balls on the table. We're gonna put them all on the table. I think this was.
Okay, so let's continue, and hopefully we'll answer your question. Yes, the brothers had bad intentions. Yes, but this. Okay, so the brothers had bad intentions, and yes, we all have free choice. But at the same time that we have free choice, we could be doing something evil, but Hashem still has His plan. The evil that one person could do from my perspective, there was a guy outside of my door taking pictures of my shul, and I thought he was a terrorist. From my perspective, but from his perspective, or from Hashem's perspective, he was doing nothing wrong. So, so two things could be true at the same time. The brothers could be doing something wrong, but at the same time, their evil is a seed, from Hashem's perspective, is a seed that He is planting so that the Jewish people could be redeemed. Only because the brothers sold him, only because he was first a slave, for the brothers was it possible for the Jewish people to eventually be redeemed, because they were never fully owned or ruled or enslaved to the Egyptians, because that never happened, because from day one, Yosef was always owned by his brothers first.
So
Say
he
it
was
again?
enslaved. He was enslaved to his brothers. What about the rest of the brothers? Who were they enslaved to? I don't see the same.
So the couples of women,
No, I understand that he was able to, when the Yidden went to Mitzrayim, they weren't enslaved to someone spiritually opposed before.
But he was because of bringing them to Mitzrayim, so therefore, we carry that spiritual.
He wasn't a cause of family. So.
That's how because he came down, and then what Jacob came down.
The spirituality.
It's
came
all
down.
part of
Yaakov
that's how it
Yaakov
happened.
came
Nobody was
with
there.
spirituality.
When you say that it was an evil thing that the brothers did, they didn't think it was evil. They did their due diligence, and it was deemed that it was an appropriate punishment. That he was eroded, that Joseph was
Evil is
eroded.
like the sign, and therefore, that's how it turned, all, they saw the sign.
On the other hand,
But they didn't have the spiritual, it's not physical, physical then.
we have the concept of Avas Yisrael. And even if someone is doing something wrong, we're going to learn this, we're going to get there. But even if someone is doing something wrong and completely wrong,
But their intentions were not evil. Their intentions were to carry out an appropriate. For somebody who's doing, who they deemed, he went through the mishpat and he was found to be guilty.
So according to the Hasidic interpretation would be that even if a person is in a court, you would rule that they deserve the worst punishment in the world. Still, from a Hasidic perspective, from the Hasidic dimension, is that we love them anyway, and that we don't separate ourselves from them, and that we don't hurt them.
Yeah, but there's always consequences, okay? Things are not a punishment, things are a consequence. You know what I'm saying?
So therefore, if you want to go that path, if you want to look at that dimension, therefore they did sell him. And the fact that they sold him actually ended up being a positive thing because therefore they were able to be redeemed at the end, which they wouldn't have been.
Right.
And the only way this could have happened was the only way they could have been redeemed is if he was originally a slave to his own brothers. Mm-hmm. So that even when Yosef was the Mishnah Melech of the whole Egypt, right? Still, he was still owned by his brothers. So ultimately, the Jewish people were never completely enslaved to the Egyptians. Okay.
Why is that such an important factor here? Why is that a relevant variable here?
Okay. So basically, the common denominator that we're going to see, between these two mitzvahs is that both of these mitzvahs, whether it be the Machzah Shekel, or whether it be the redeeming the firstborn, both of them have this concept of redemption. Let me just follow this. Okay. The concept of the firstborn son, the concept of redeeming the firstborn son, what does that teach us? It teaches us that we don't belong to Mitzrayim, we don't belong to ourselves, we only belong to Hashem. And that is a very, very important point. We asked, what's the connection between redeeming the firstborn son and this concept of the brothers selling Yosef? And the answer is that this concept of redeeming a firstborn son is very, very connected to the sale of Yosef, because although he ended up going down to Mitzrayim, the redeeming of the firstborn son proves that no matter what, we belong to Hashem. We don't belong to the Egyptians, and Yosef did not belong to the Egyptians, and because he belongs to Hashem first, and that is what the mitzvah of Pidyon Ben represents. That we don't own ourselves, that we don't belong to anyone, we only belong to Hashem. And the same is with the Yidden, that even if they're enslaved in Galus, they don't belong to the Egyptians, they only belong to Hashem. And therefore, this mitzvah of Pidyon Ben is very, very much related to this concept of the sale of Yosef. Because the sale of Yosef proves to us that because he was first a slave to his brothers, implies that Yidden are always a slave to Hashem, and we're not a slave to any other power. And that is ultimately the secret to our redemption.
It's good for parents to know that we don't own our children, and we just have to raise them for Hashem.
100%. 100%.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is here now. Everything's going to come together. Okay, this is where everything's going to come together. How are the Yidden going to have this special power that no matter what happens, we always belong to Hashem? The way that happens is with a quorum, with a minyan of 10. Yeah, when you have 10 people, how many people are we? We're more than 10. When you have 10 people, you bring the Shekhinah down. And the Shekhinah is so powerful, this divine energy is so powerful that it's beyond the world of the angels. And when you have 10 people together, then you have the energy, the power of the Shekhinah, which would protect the Jewish people. And therefore, we're so insistent that the sale had to be 10 people. 9 of them was in a revealed way, and 1 was in a hidden way. We're not sure. Was it Reuben? Was it Vayeishev? Because
Hashem is like the 10, agreed with them.
Right. If it would have been 10 real people, then the Shekhinah would have truly be present. The sale could have never happened. So it had to be not in a revealed way, in a little bit of a tricky way. It couldn't be in a revealed way, 10 people, because then the sale could have never happened. So there had to be 9 people, and then the 10th one you have to schlep from somewhere. Was it Hashem? Was it Reuven? Was it Vayeishev? Because it couldn't be in a revealed way 10, because then the sale could have never happened with the Shekhinah shining in a revealed way. You had to have the Shekhinah in a hidden way. You have to have 10, the 10th has to be hidden so that the Shekhinah could be hidden. So you could have the power of the 10, you could have the tzibur, and that the Yidden should not ever be dragged and owned by the Egyptians, but we should always be able to be higher than them. So again,
From the top, from the other left, that's why it's done this way.
it was done this way. It was done this way. It was in a hidden way, because if you had the power of the Shekhinah in a revealed way, the sale could have never happened. We needed the power of the tzibur. We needed the power of 10 in order to have the strength. In order to have the strength of this, in order for the sale to have the strength, so that the Yosef should be owned by Hashem and not by the Egyptians. So ultimately, the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben, which is redeeming the firstborn son, which represents the fact that we are owned by Hashem and not by anyone else, and not by the Mitzrayim. How did that happen? That was through a concept of a tzibur, that was through a concept of 10. And therefore, in the Talmud Yerushalmi, when the Talmud Yerushalmi speaks about Machzah Shekel, the reason for Machzah Shekel, it brings the concept of Pidyon Haben also, and even before Machzah Shekel. And the question is why? What's the connection? Why are you bringing Pidyon Haben when talking about Machzah Shekel? And the answer is that the Pidyon Haben comes first, because through understanding the concept of Pidyon Haben, which is that you need a concept of a tzibur, so that we should always belong to Hashem, that we're redeemed by Hashem, that Hashem will redeem us, that we don't belong to anyone else, only to Hashem. That is a prerequisite for us to understand the concept of a Machzah Shekel. What's the concept of Machzah Shekel? Is that every person has to bring a half a shekel. And what was the half a shekel used for? Karbanes tzibur. It was used for sacrifices, communal sacrifices. The way to atone for the sale of Yosef is when we know that we're each a half a shekel. When we're each a half, we're not perfect without the other person. And that's why the money that was used for the half a shekel was specifically for communal sacrifices, not for something individual. So basically, both of these mitzvahs, I know it's very, very hard.
But then, you threw in the hero, so let's.
So, okay. Thank you. Okay, so now the lesson. Okay,
So the Bechira is free choice.
Bechira is free choice, and we have free choice. But at the same time, two things can be true at the same time. From our perspective, we have free choice. From Hashem's perspective, our free choice, which could seem not good, is actually Hashem planting a seed for redemption. The brothers, by selling him, they accomplished the concept of galus. And Hashem used that very same thing, twisted it around to plant the seed for Geula, because yes, there's a galus, but the only way we could get out of the galus, the only way we could have a Geula is if they were sold by a tzibur, as if he was sold by a tzibur. So the very thing which was the worst of the worst ended up being the best of the best. Okay.
Well, if I'm gonna bring it to today, to you.
Okay, you want practical.
No,
Okay, so basically the tzibur, the power of the tzibur ended up being the blessing and giving us the power to escape what otherwise we could have never escaped. We could have never escaped Egypt if not for the power of the tzibur, which was used for the sale, which was seemingly a bad thing, which ended up turning into the best thing from Hashem's perspective.
Exactly like
Yes. Okay, so now
yes.
two things could be the same truth. A guy could be delivering an Amazon package, doing everything right, and someone else could think that he's a terrorist at the same time. You can have two things that are true at the same time.
You know, it goes back to what you taught me about and Hashem does everything good. And he took them away from this world. That this was what their neshama needed. I had to do an exercise recently. I'm taking this course, and she says, bring up a memory from a certain time period, and the memory was not a good one, and it left me with such bad feelings about somebody causing me pain. And I said to Hashem, you're all good. Please help me feel that. I died with that. Help me feel that it's good, because pain is hurtful. Memories can be hurtful. And I have to tell you, it took 24 hours and the pain is finished.
Wow.
He helped me. It's gone. I don't even know when I think back to it, nothing.
So this end of the class is going to say exactly what you're saying. Okay, from the choice of who was the 10th brother, was it Reuven or was it Yosef? From either Yosef, if you say either if it was Reuven or it was Yosef, we could learn a tremendous lesson about Ahavas Yisroel. If you take the approach, if you say that the 10th from the choice of which brother it was, this teaches us how deep our Ahavas Yisroel has to go. If you take Reuven, let's imagine what happened, the scenario. You have Reuven. Reuven was against the sale of Yosef. He planned to come and rescue him from the pit. He said, throw him into the pit. He wanted to come and rescue him. He comes back, and what does he see? That they sold him. What did Reuven do? He could have said, you guys are terrible, horrible people. I never want to speak to you again. But he did not separate himself from them, even though you could say they were lowlives. So how far deep does our Ahavas Yisrael have to go? Okay, of course, a person shouldn't put themselves in a situation where they could be harmed or where their spirituality is going to be harmed. But if a person has the strength, and they're in a situation where they're with people that may be very low and maybe have done something very not good, not to separate ourselves from them, but rather to have Ahavas Yisrael and to say, I am going to stick with you because you are my brother. You are my brothers. I'm not going to ignore you. I'm not going to give up on you. They did the worst thing. He had Ahavas Yisrael for his brothers. So even though he was against what they were doing, he didn't disown them. He didn't disown them.
He chose Abbas Yisrael over one over the other.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
And he also put me on.
I was gonna say the hottest one for them is a sinner.
So at this point, the brother was already.
Like, you know,
He goes down, Joseph was already gone. We couldn't help Joseph at that moment.
Yes.
So, not separate from his brother.
He hoped to stay with his brothers so that he could have a hashpah on them, that he could have a good influence on them. If he separates himself from them and makes more fighting, then what good is that going to do? But if he sticks with them, then eventually they ended up going to Mitzrayim. They were trying to look for Yosef. So his idea was, I'm not going to separate myself from them. I'm going to stay with them and try to improve their behavior. I'm going to stay with them, not give up on them, so that eventually we'll be able to be a team, to be able to find him and to save him. So rather than giving up on these brothers who did such a terrible thing, he kept his mouth shut. He was silent. He was silent because he couldn't do anything at this point to save Yosef, but he didn't disassociate himself from his brothers, even though they did the wrong thing, because he was going to wait for an opportunity. He was going to. So in a spiritual sense, he was sticking with them so that to have the opportunity to have ashpa on them. This is Chassidus. Chassidus takes everything and turns it upside down. You think, you could say, oh, why didn't he say something? Why didn't he scream at them? But why didn't he tell Yaakov? But he was quiet when they dipped the coat in the blood. He was quiet because he was waiting. Yes, and therefore, he didn't reprimand him. He was quiet. He was quiet, and therefore we could count him. Therefore, we secretly count him in the sale because he was quiet, and he did take the money.
So he was guilty.
So on one hand, but we need him to be guilty because we need a 10th brother.
He is guilty.
So it had to be in a roundabout way. So we need him, on one hand, we need him to be guilty. On the other hand, we could learn a lesson from Abbas Yisrael that if you're surrounded by people that are at a lower level than you, instead of giving up on them and say, I don't want anything to do with you, to say, you know what, I'm going to stick around. Maybe I could have a good influence at some point and draw them close.
And if Hashem didn't give up on me, then who am I to give up on another Jew?
And in what way did he set a good example, though, Reuben?
Right.
In what way did he?
So if you want to play it that way, we need him to be bad. We need him to be bad so he could be the 10th.
But then you're saying that he was in that position to influence. Does the text say that anywhere?
No, because the text is pshat, and we're learning secrets. We're learning studies.
So
We're learning.
Saying anywhere that Reuben had hashpah on them.
Well, the
Chassidus
teaches us that his intentions of being quiet were good. That's what Chassidus' interpretation. Yes,
but he was good. I mean, it was seen as a bad thing that he didn't sit with them, right?
It depends which dimension of Torah you're looking at it.
Mary was saying.
Right, at the beginning, yes.
He told him
yes.
not to kill him, but to put him in the pit.
Right. So he had the good intentions. So if you're looking at it from the dimension of pshat, from the dimension of pshat, he should have said something. But from the dimension of Chassidus, he kept quiet because he realized that if he would say something, they wouldn't listen to him.
He'd be outvoted.
He always had good
intentions. Yes. Also, when he changed the beds, when he switched the beds, also he had good intentions, but it didn't come out right. Yeah. Okay. One more minute. Yosef. What lesson can we learn about Yosef? This is what you're saying. Another opinion is that we include Yosef in the count of 10, even though Yosef was the one who actually was hurt. He was the one that was enslaved. And the lesson is, even if someone causes you pain, you still need to have Avas Yisrael for them. And you should not hold a grudge, not just at the moment, but even not just after the fact, but even while you're in pain, you should not hold a grudge. And you should judge favorably, and you should be humble before every person. Because as Tanya teaches, that there's a concept of hashgacha pratis, that if a person is experiencing pain, If a person experiences pain, then that person, he did what he did wrong, and Hashem's gonna punish him for what he did wrong. But Hashem decided that the victim has to be the victim for whatever reason. And the pain.
That's in the hands of the court, actually cause the punishment, but as us human beings, being just,
So we say at night,
our job is to
we say at night in Shema, Hashem, please don't punish anyone on my account. And you know, I've been saying Shema for 20-something years nightly, and now is the first time that I'm feeling it.
Wow. And we have to know that ultimately, when someone inflicts pain upon us, ultimately it's for our benefit. And the sale was the sale, which was so bad, ultimately that it was directly related to the Geula. And his care for his brothers, his care for his brothers by the end allowed that he shouldn't be harmed by his brothers. I'm sorry, and that there should be redemption. So basically, the point is that the lesson that we learned from Vayeishev is that even though he was harmed by his brothers, ultimately this brought about the redemption. They were able to redeem because yes, thank you. Yes, he realized that yes, he experienced pain, but this pain was the seed for the redemption that would come in the future. So ultimately,
and he did not hold a grudge
against them, exactly. And through having avas chinam, which is a baseless love, we will dissolve the galus and we will get rid of the cause of the galus, which was sinas chinam. Basically, the lesson is that both of the power of the tzibur, the power of the 10 people coming together, the 10 brothers coming together, that shechina, that incredible shechina that was revealed, that was that ultimately brought about the redemption. And now we see the connection of both the mitzvahs, whether it is redeeming the firstborn son, which represents the concept of that we belong to Hashem, and that whole concept, and that concept was brought about through the tzibur, and the other mitzvah of machzah shekel, which also is that we bring communal funds, which is tzibur. So we have both mitzvahs relate to tzibur. That's why they're both connected, and that's why they're both how we correct the concept of the sale of Vayeishev, which looked so terrible, but ended up being the greatest blessing.
Wow. We really have to know that we don't understand everything. All we have to know that Hashem is Kulo Tov. That's all we have to know.
You don't have to understand.
And if
Thank you
something is coming from him,
You're so welcome.
it's actually good.
Much easier to do that.
And if it's good, thank you. I have to thank him for
Not just what appears to be good,
yes,
and the bad.
yes, for everything that I see.